we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Let the doors be open. Statements by members. Déclaration de député. The honourable member for Oshawa.
Mr. Speaker, just recently the 40th annual Heritage Tournament took place in my home riding of Oshawa. Over the course of 3 days, 82 youth hockey teams played in over 100 games and competed for 11 championship banners. I am very proud to say that both the Oshawa Falcons and Oshawa HoCs claimed several championship banners. The tournament was first held on Heritage Day, or what was then known as Flag Day, in 1975, and was organized by the Oshawa Church Hockey League. For 40 years, the tournament has provided the youth of Oshawa and Ontario with an exciting display of hockey talent while reinforcing the ideals of sportsmanship and fair play. I'd like to thank Dave and Brenda Glazier for coordinating this year's event. Dave, like his late father Bill, who pioneered the Oshawa Church League in 1975, has been involved in every Heritage tournament since its inception. I also want to congratulate all the teams and players who competed and thank all the volunteers who made this tournament possible. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member for Toronto Danforth.
In 1867, school principal Alexander Muir, living in what is now Toronto Danforth, Leslieville, is said to have been inspired to write the poem "The Maple Leaf Forever" after a leaf fell onto his shoulder from a maple tree. The great tree that legend says inspired that poem, later to become a song, was felled by lightning in 2013. But it lives on through dozens of woodworking projects coordinated by the City of Toronto, including the new flagpole beside the Speaker's chair. This song, celebrating British war victories, accelerated the spread of the maple leaf symbol to English-speaking Canada from its origins as a patriotic emblem in early 1800s Quebec, helping pave the way for the adoption of the single maple leaf as our flag symbol of Canadian unity. And the song's lyrics have evolved as Canada has evolved. The most recent version was the winner of a CBC contest in 1997 to rewrite the song into something more inclusive, unifying, and inspiring for 21st century Canada. Allow me to end by reading some lines from Vladimir Radian's 1997 lyrics. Protect the weak, defend your rights, and build this land together, above which shine the northern lights and the maple leaf forever.
The honourable member for West Vancouver, Sunshine Coast, Sea to Sky Country.
Mr. Speaker, the New York Times recently proclaimed Squamish as one of the 52 best places in the world to visit, calling it an unusual combination of West Coast wilderness and accessibility. And last week, Squamish was once again in the news. Maclean's magazine listed Quest University in first place for student engagement among 73 Canadian universities and colleges. Quest has topped the list in 4 of the last 5 years. I visited Quest last week, where I met with its highly regarded president, Dr. David Helfand, teaching fellow Denise Gabriel, and a variety of students, the best and the brightest, from Canada and around the world. Along with Capilano University, Quest has put Squamish on the map as a global academic center. Squamish is also an entrepreneurial community. It's blazing trails, not only in academics, but also in sustainable economic opportunities, thanks in part to the initiative of its Chamber of Commerce, one of Canada's most active. I congratulate Squamish and Quest on their leadership, proving once again that big things really do come in small packages.
The honourable member for Mount Royal.
Mr. Speaker, 1 year ago today, Venezuelan opposition leader Leopoldo Lopez was arrested as part of a crackdown on peaceful protests that left 43 dead, 3,000 detained, and scores of political prisoners. His trial has been a sham, in which the judge has allowed over 100 prosecution witnesses while denying defense testimony. His imprisonment has been cruel and inhumane. Last week, a dozen armed men wearing ski masks destroyed the contents of his cell and moved him to a small isolation unit with no toilet or running water. After his wife Lillian Tintori appeared before a Foreign Affairs Subcommittee on International Human Rights, the subcommittee passed a unanimous motion condemning the arbitrary and illegal detention and imprisonment of Mr. Lopez. The violations of his fundamental freedoms and his right to a fair trial is guaranteed under international law and the Venezuelan Constitution. Mr. Speaker, I ask all members to join this call for the release of Leopoldo Lopez and all political prisoners in Venezuela, and to urge the government of Venezuela to respect democracy, human rights, and the rule of law for all its people. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Don Valley West.
Mr. Speaker, today I am pleased to highlight the investments our government has made and continues to make towards transit infrastructure in Toronto. One of the most consistent priorities I hear from my constituents in Don Valley West is the need to get Toronto moving and remove gridlock. Our government has made historic investments in public transit. Since 2006, we've invested or committed over $3.2 billion in critical transit projects. Some of these investments include $92.3 million towards the Toronto Rocket subway trains, $250 million invested in improving GO Transit rail and bus services, close to $171 million towards the new generation of streetcars. Through our government's extension and doubling of the gas tax fund, we've invested more than $2.2 billion to support municipal infrastructure right across the GTA. Transit is an important part of our healthy, growing economy. I'm proud to represent Toronto and Don Valley West. Mr. Speaker, it is quite clear that our government believes in Toronto. On behalf of the people of Toronto, I'd like to express my thanks for believing in our great city. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member from Montmorency, Charlevoix-Côte-Nord. Mr. Speaker, we learned early this week that the Prime Minister is not Charlie. And that's not a surprise for anyone, that for this government, freedom of expression is limited to Conservative positions. Until recently, we knew that the Conservatives scorn researchers, intellectuals, journalists, and political columnists. But when he was interviewed on a Quebec City radio station last week, we learned that the Prime Minister also scorns the employees of CBC Radio-Canada, who, according to him, hate Conservative values. This shows the Prime Minister's true intent to see this institution, which he deems an obstacle to his political party, disappear. I believe, Mr. Speaker, that what the Prime Minister said about CBC Radio-Canada employees is ill-advised, baseless, and unworthy of the position he holds.
The honourable member for Kelowna Lake Country.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It will be my great pleasure this week to present to Kelowna Lake Country resident Phyllis McPherson a Canadian flag in celebration of the 50th anniversary of the National Flag of Canada. Mr. Speaker, this tradition recognizes the exceptional individuals who make outstanding contributions to our communities and to our country. And Phyllis certainly fits this bill. A dynamic and compassionate individual, Phyllis McPherson has been the volunteer manager of the Lake Country Food Assistance Society for over 30 years, helping many individuals and families when they are most in need and giving tirelessly of her time and talents to raise funds for the Society to find a permanent home. Mr. Speaker, in dedicating her life to the others in this way, Phyllis reminds us all that the misfortune of others could be one's own, and that in order to call ourselves members of a community, we must look out for each other. Congratulations, Phyllis, on this well-deserved honor. May we all strive, as you have, to remember to see our neighbours through the eyes of understanding and live with hearts of compassion. Mr. Speaker, there, but for the grace of God, go I. Thank you, Phyllis.
Honourable member for Wetaskiwin.
Mr. Speaker, in December of last year, the town of Rocky Mountain House was rocked by the sudden and tragic loss of Ruben de Gracias, Blessy Capule Orbigo, and her new husband, Napoleon Orbigo. All of them temporary foreign workers who perished tragically in a car accident on a snow-covered highway just weeks before Christmas. What followed was a truly inspiring reaction from the folks of Rocky Mountain House, who rallied to support those left behind and their families back in the Philippines. For example, students aged co-workers wore their work hoodies to school or picked up extra shifts to support each other and honor their lost friends. Donations were accepted at many local businesses, and the students of St. Dominic's High School set up a fundraising event. The community of Rocky Mountain House came together and raised enough money to ensure that Blessy, Napoleon, and Ruben could be returned home for burial, and the extra cash was sent to their grieving families back in the Philippines. Mr. Speaker, the good people of Rocky Mountain House, through their kindness, compassion, and generosity, demonstrated to all of us what it means to be our best in the face of tragedy. They truly honored the lives of Ruben, Blessy, and Napoleon. May they rest in peace.
Honourable member for Acadie Bathurst. Mr. Speaker, on February 6, during a training exercise, Sergeant Mark Salès passed away. He was a search and rescue technician with 17 Wing Winnipeg. He died due to an avalanche in Banff National Park in Alberta. Sergeant Salès was born in Chamberlain Settlement near Bathurst. He was accompanied by 3 other ice climbers who were not injured during the training exercise. Aged 44, he was the son of Liz Quinn and Maurice Salès. Sergeant Salès loved his work deeply as a SARTEC, despite all the risks. He devoted his life to helping and rescuing people in trouble. To all his family and his colleagues in the forces, I would like to offer you on my behalf and on behalf of the NDP our sincerest condolences, and I hope that his love for his neighbours and his family will ease your pain. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Northumberland, Quinte West.
Mr. Speaker, our government is committed to working with our international allies to fight against ISIL around the world in order to protect Canadians. According to the Liberal member for Westmount Ville-Marie, airstrikes against ISIL, the ISIL death cult are, and I quote, overkill. My constituents do not believe that working to stop a gruesome terrorist organization that beheads people who don't agree with them, threatens to behead the elderly in their beds if they do not convert, and has committed countless crimes against women and children is overkill. In fact, our armed forces has confirmed that our airstrikes have successfully degraded ISIL's capabilities. Mr. Speaker, ISIL is a threat to domestic and international security. They have declared war on Canada. They called for brutal attacks against Canadians, and although the Liberals want us to sit and do nothing, we will persist.
The Honourable Member for Algoma, Manitoulin, Kapuskasing.
Mr. Speaker, every year in Canada, violence drives 100,000 women and children out of their homes and into shelters, where those options exist. In Northern Canada, the problem is extreme and more women face abuse. Yet despite greater rates of violence, 70% of northern and remote communities do not have safe houses or emergency shelters.
Instead of doing more, the government is doing less to help people who are victims of violence. With its so-called plan of action, the government is doing nothing but reintroducing the same money.
It's actually promised less money for shelters than was given in recent years. On this side of the House, we will not accept a frontier mentality that excuses abuse and violence as part of a rugged northern lifestyle. No. Mr. Speaker, we call upon this government to challenge our own patterns of violence perpetrated on women and create viable options for northern women facing domestic abuse in northern Canada.
Well done.
The Honourable Member for Lotbinière de la Chaudière. Mr. Speaker, yesterday the Liberal leader opposed the government's principled position on the oath of citizenship being delivered without a veil or facial covering, stating the reason the Prime Minister gave last week for appealing the court's decision was not justifying the Prime Minister's decision. So people should be showing their face when they want to join Canada's family. I'm very pleased that the government has the intention of appealing this decision. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Halifax West.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to salute an outstanding young athlete from Hammonds Plains, Nova Scotia. Olivia Rebecca Oliver is a provincial figure skating champion, but she's also becoming recognized for her commitment to others. On January 19th, this amazing 11-year-old broke the world record for fastest spinner on ice skates with a speed of 342 RPM. Olivia used this challenge to raise money for Coalition for Kids International. That means 100 terminally ill children in Poland will have a wish come true. She's also helping local youth from the Leave Out Violence Organization, or LOVE, in Halifax. I know my colleagues will want to join me in congratulating Olivia for her remarkable achievements.
The Honourable Member for Winnipeg South Centre.
Mr. Speaker, mothers and fathers should be able to make the important decisions that affect their own children. That's why our new family tax cut and enhanced universal child care benefit will give 100% of families with children an average of more than $1,100 per year to spend on their priorities, with the majority of benefits flowing to low and middle income families. Our government trusts that parents know what's best for their children. But both the Liberals and NDP are against putting money back into the pockets of hard-working families. In fact, the Liberals will reverse our tax cuts and want to impose more taxes on middle-class Canadian families. Mr. Speaker, on this side of the House, we will not hike taxes like the Liberals propose. Rather, we are proud to ensure that Mum and Dad have the final say in where their money is going for their family. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for La Pointe-de-l'Île. Mr. Speaker, the member for Saint-Laurent-Cartierville likes to wag his finger at the Conservatives concerning the use of both official languages on Twitter. In my opinion, he should look at his own party. He says that he cares about bilingualism. So how can he explain that his own party treats French as a second-class language here in this House? In 2014, barely 22% of the questions asked in this House by the Liberals were in French. Clearly, the member for Saint-Laurent-Cartierville is better at wagging his finger than at delivering the goods. Speaking of all talk and no action, the Conservatives are no better. They appoint unilingual individuals to positions such as Foreign Affairs Minister and Auditor General and the courts. Only the NDP takes both official languages seriously. Even as an opposition, we have made bilingualism progress because we introduced an excellent bill on parliamentary officers. Imagine what we'll do when we form government.
The honourable member for Calgary Centre.
I was happy to hear the statement by the member from Winnipeg because 100% of families with children will benefit from our new family tax cut. That's families in Calgary and families across the country. We've expanded and increased the universal child care benefit so families will receive $2,000 per child in every riding in this country. That's nearly $12,000 by the time your child is 6. But the Liberals and the NDP would reverse those cuts. They want to put that money back in the hands of the government bureaucracy. We won't do that, Mr. Speaker, but already the Liberal leader has said that he will reverse those cuts. They even want to impose more taxes like the job-killing carbon tax. Canadians can only trust our government to be able to put money back in their pockets. And you know what, Mr. Speaker? That's something the people of Calgary Centre and the people across Canada appreciate from this government.
I would like to draw to the attention of all honourable members a new flagpole and stand fashioned from wood from the silver maple tree that inspired the song The Maple Leaf Forever here at the right hand of the Speaker's chair. The remains of the tree, which fell during a storm in 2013, are being turned into 150 art craft projects for public display across Canada. I wish to thank the Honourable Member for Toronto Danforth, who proposed that the House of Commons participate in this initiative. Je souhaite également remercier.
I would also like to thank the teams in the House here for the superb design and the excellent work in the creation of these historic objects. Members will perhaps also have seen in the Hall of Honor the flag that was the first to fly over the Peace Tower 50 years ago on February 15, 1965.
First, I invite all honourable members to stop by and have a look at this remarkable artifact of our country's history. Oral questions, questions orales. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, in Canada, the fact of encouraging someone to commit a terrorist act is already a crime. The Crime Minister wants to change the law in order to promote, saying that promoting terrorists in general is now a crime. The problem is that this definition doesn't add anything tangible. The Minister of Public Safety says that he does not want to get bogged down in definitions. So, can the Prime Minister give Canadians an example of a situation that is already not targeted by the existing legislation? Mr. Speaker, it's clear that the fact of encouraging or promoting terrorism is a crime in Canada. But, Mr. Speaker, it is a clarification in the Act that is quite sensible. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition can encouraging someone is already a crime. Is he the first Prime Minister, the only one who hasn't understood that? CSIS already has a mandate to investigate any threat to Canada's security. Under the Prime Minister's new bill, the definition of a threat to security would include anything that could interfere with economic stability. Well, what does that mean? Can the Prime Minister tell Canadians precisely what interfering with economic stability means within the framework of his law? Right Honourable Prime Minister. Terrorists can affect Canada's economic stability. We just look at the events of September 11th.
Range of national security threats to Canada, but it also makes clear that any activity undermining security does not include lawful advocacy, protest, dissent, or artistic expression.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Right now, CSIS investigates security threats, but the Prime Minister's proposed bill would redefine security threats to include all activities that, quote, interfere with infrastructure and economic stability, to give only two examples. CSIS is already charged with investigating things like terrorist threats against our economic infrastructure. It's already there. So what new kinds of economic interference would CSIS now be charged with investigating? Can the Prime Minister give Canadians a single example?
In fact, under present authorities, CSIS does not have the authorization to disrupt security threats that are in stage. Mr. Speaker, this bill gives CSIS those authorities to be exercised with judicial oversight and court authority.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Speaker, terrorism is a real threat, and everyone agrees that public safety is the primary responsibility of any government. But Canadians don't have to choose between security and their rights. Interfering with infrastructure, interfering with economic stability. Why is the Prime Minister lumping in legitimate dissent with terrorist activities?
Mr. Speaker, the bill, as I just outlined, does absolutely no such thing, not even remotely, Mr. Speaker. This is, in fact, the attempt of the NDP to always say that anything that is in defense of our security somehow undermines our freedoms. And, Mr. Speaker, that is simply not true. All we are seeing here, Mr. Speaker, is as the NDP's positions on this issue become more and more irrelevant, more and more unconnected to Canadians' real concerns, their statements on the issue become more and more extreme.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Of course, when he uses the word extreme to define the opposition, and then he denies that this is about political opportunism, everybody can see right through it.
CSIS already has a mandate to investigate threats to security and potential attacks at all, any kind, against Canada. So the Prime Minister's bill would expand its mandate. But to do what? For what activities? He is unable to provide a single example to Canadians. Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition is saying that this bill wouldn't change anything. But, Mr. Speaker, it is just common sense to ensure that all of our police forces and security forces would have the tools to deal with threats to our safety and deal with terrorists, and also to share information among themselves. So, Mr. Speaker, it's just common sense, and that's the reason why Canadians support this bill in the great majority.
Mr. Speaker, last night I spoke with Mohamed Fahmy, and today I have two questions. First, will the Prime Minister pick up the phone and call President el-Sisi to personally ask for Mr. Fahmy to be returned to Canada. Further, will the Government of Canada make a formal submission at trial requesting his immediate deportation?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, although Mr. Fahmy has been released on bail, the government remains very concerned about this case and about the process in question. We have expressed those concerns to the government of Egypt at all levels. And, Mr. Speaker, we will continue to do so until we get a resolution of this that's satisfactory.
The honourable member for...
Mr. Speaker, the government has a responsibility to educate Canadians about matters of public health. But yesterday, the health minister simply pointed fingers at parents for not vaccinating children. Instead of blaming parents, will this Prime Minister cancel his wasteful partisan ads and start a national education campaign on the importance of vaccinating our kids?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, there's a bit of a shuffle over there because yesterday the leader of the Liberal Party accused the government of having cut vaccination campaigns and vaccination funding. I checked on those numbers overnight and saw that there's been no reduction whatsoever, Mr. Speaker. In fact, Mr. Speaker, this government has not only continued doing what we've always done domestically, we're involved in unprecedented programs internationally of promoting the vaccination. The Minister of Health has made this very clear, and I would encourage all members of the House to indicate to Canadians the medical science is absolutely clear, vaccinations are good, and children should be protected.
The honourable member for Papineau.
23% cuts since 2006. La Cour suprême.
The Supreme Court only gave the government 1 year to draft new legislation on medical assistance for dying, and Canadians and experts want to hear and have a discussion about this that is respectful and responsible on this important issue. Will the Prime Minister launch the process over the next few weeks, or is he going to force Canadians to wait until after the next elections? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, it's obvious that this issue is a sensitive one for many Canadians, and they have very strong beliefs on all sides. So we will study this decision, and we will carry out vast consultations, extensive consultations, and deal with this difficult issue. The Honourable Member for Alfred-Pellan. Everyone here agrees, Mr. Speaker, we have to do everything possible to assure that Canadians are safe. But it shouldn't be to our detriment of who we are, of our values and our way of living. Canadians shouldn't have to choose between our security and our freedoms and rights. Why are the Conservatives saying that we really have to choose between our freedom and our security? The Honourable Minister of Public Safety. Mr. Speaker, it's very clear. There's no freedom without security. What the bill is doing, unfortunately, the NDP haven't taken the time to read past page 3. It has provisions that would deal with criminals, and we will ensure that terrorists will have to face the law. But I'd like to remind my colleague that freedom and safety go hand in hand, and that our police forces and our intelligence services are there to protect our freedom and our democracy. The Honourable Member for Alfred-Pellan. Honestly, Mr. Speaker, we can see that Bill C-51 is a direct attack on our freedom, and it is ineffective. It's a bill that goes much too far, period. And we have measures that work and that reduce the terrorist threat, but this bill would undermine our freedoms and our rights. So why do the Conservatives refuse to use common sense and include logical and necessary measures like increased oversight of CSIS to prevent radicalization? The Honourable Minister of Public Safety. Mr. Speaker, beyond this NDP rhetoric, we have to be sensible. They never support measures to protect Canadians from terrorist threats. But in the bill that we are discussing, there are tangible measures to prevent terrorism, particularly in terms of the intelligence services. They'll be able to speak to the parents of a child who might be drifting into radicalism, and even deal with websites that are promoting jihadist or terrorist propaganda. So there are very good reasons, and once again, I'm really looking forward to talking more about this excellent measure.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the issue of counting terrorism in Canada and doing what's necessary to protect Canadians while preserving our rights and freedoms is a profoundly serious debate. Canadians expect that all parliamentarians will do their jobs and stand up against any legislation that erodes our Canadian way of life. It's imperative that the government allow for an open and meaningful debate on C-51. We cannot afford to allow this sweeping legislation to be rushed through the House. Will the minister commit now that he won't railroad C-51 through this House?
Yeah. The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, I think there is a misunderstanding from the opposition here. Those who are threatening our way of life, those who are threatening this very parliament, and did indeed, Mr. Speaker, are the terrorists, Mr. Speaker. And that's why we need to table sound, reasonable, well-balanced approach to tackle with the terrorist threat. That's the first duty of our governments, Mr. Speaker, and I'm more than happy to open the debate right after question period so we can have a debate on this issue and get this bill through so we can protect Canadians. Thank you.
Well, I didn't hear a commitment there to full debate. All I heard was just starting the debate. And this is not the kind of approach that Canadians expect from their government on this serious issue. The Conservatives have put forward legislation that simply goes too far. A bill so vague the minister can't even explain its key provisions. C-51 must be changed to remove the threat it poses to our rights and freedoms. Will the government commit to listening to Canadians and hearing from experts at committee, and then change its bill to strengthen oversight and protect Canadian freedoms?
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, 2 years ago we introduced the Combat Terrorism Act. We wanted to protect Canadians against terrorists. Where were the NDP? Opposed, Mr. Speaker. We want to remove citizenship, Mr. Speaker, from those convicted of terrorism. Once again, Mr. Speaker, dual citizenship, the NDP opposed. No surprise they oppose this common sense and reasonable bill, Mr. Speaker, because they seem to be ideologically, opposed to any measure that would protect Canadians. Mr. Speaker, we're more open for debate, but more importantly, Canadians are expecting them. We take the measure to keep them safe.
The Honourable Member for Bourg-en-Bresse-Salaberry. Mr. Speaker, the retail sector is in a crisis situation. It's symptomatic of the general state of the economy. After Target, Mex, and Jacob, it's now Bikini Village's turn to close its doors. More than 400 jobs lost. In my riding, the retailers of Salaberry de Valleyfield are worried. Our downtown is losing businesses one by one. The government has a plan to help the wealthiest 15%. But they don't have a plan to help small and medium-sized businesses and create jobs for the middle class. Minister of Industry. Mr. Speaker, it's certainly critical that we have a policy and budgets that will help job creation across the country. That's why, Mr. Speaker, with last year's budget, we cut taxes to ensure that we have an approach that will be guaranteed to create jobs. And today, we have the best job creation numbers of any country in the G7, and we will certainly have new approaches and policies in our budget this year to ensure prosperity for the future.
Yesterday, the new so-called jobs minister had no answer for unemployed Canadians who can't get EI benefits. Maybe he doesn't realize just how big the problem's grown under this government's watch. Mr. Speaker, we have lost more than 400,000 good manufacturing jobs under the Conservatives so far. Too many of them in my region. The NDP has a plan to boost innovation in manufacturing and create good jobs. Why are the Conservatives turning their backs on southwestern Ontario?
The Honourable Minister of Employment.
Mr. Speaker, the only plan the NDP has is to raise job-killing taxes on workers and on the businesses that employ them. On the question of EI, Mr. Speaker, of eligible applicants, the majority received their benefit within 28 days, but the NDP is trying to distract from its irresponsible 45-day work year plan, which would cost the Canadian taxpayers $4 billion a year in job-killing payroll taxes. On this side of the House, we will reduce taxes to create more jobs.
And the honourable member for Parkdale High Park.
Well, Mr. Speaker, unemployment is up 200,000 since before the recession, and somehow this minister thinks he's doing a good job. The fact is, we've seen so many plant closures on their watch that the sector can't even take advantage now that we have a lower dollar. So in order to help manufacturers compete and create jobs, we need to support investments in equipment and innovation, which is exactly what the NDP plan would do.
That's right.
So my question is, why do the Conservatives refuse to support good middle-class jobs for Canadians?
The Honourable Minister of Industry.
Well, Jason Myers, the president of the Canadian Manufacturers Association, says the NDP plan is, to put it bluntly, a joke. He says that the NDP plan will result in higher taxes and it would erode investment and put Canadian jobs at risk, Mr. Speaker. The NDP pretends to be in favor of lower taxes, but we actually lower taxes and they voted against it. The Canadian manufacturers and exporters understand that, which is why they've supported our budget, and they also recognize that the ideas of the NDP have failed everywhere that they've been tried. The public understands that, and they know that our government is the only government that is on the side of manufacturers.
The honourable member for Victoria.
Conservatives are letting tax cheats off the hook and doing nothing to help middle-class Canadians. Media reports that a single bank, the HSBC, has helped as many as 1,800 Canadians avoid paying their taxes. But while the Swiss and the American authorities are going after HSBC for money laundering and fraud, this Conservative government does nothing but make excuses. Billions of dollars are being lost every year to tax evasion schemes while this government guts the Canada Revenue Agency. When will the minister start really going after tax cheats?
Mr. Speaker, this government has zero tolerance for tax evasion. Since 2006, the CRA has audited over 8,600 international tax cases, identified over $5.6 billion in additional taxes being collected, and we have not reduced our audit forces, Mr. Speaker. Regarding HSBC, the CRA conducted hundreds of audits, leading to over $21 million in taxes and penalties being reassessed. Further, CRA has received over 250 voluntary disclosures relating to Canadians with HSBC account. That represents another $123 million.
Honourable member for Rivière-du-Nord. Mr. Speaker, HSBC Bank is at the heart of a huge tax fraud and money laundering scandal tied to drug trafficking and terrorism financing. 1,800 Canadians have an account in that Swiss bank. If they were able to hide money there, it's often because unscrupulous institutions here facilitated the transfer of funds. Whereas we have learned that Swiss authorities have started to carry out searches today, can the minister tell us what she is doing to go after these white-collar criminals and their accomplices? Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, our government has zero tolerance for tax fraud.
With respect to the HSBC accounts, where non-compliance was expected, the CRA conducted hundreds of audits. This has led to over $21 million in taxes and penalties being reassessed. And further, our voluntary disclosure program, which is more robust than ever when it comes to international tax evasion, has brought forward 250 voluntary disclosures, representing nearly another $123 million in previously undisclosed amounts.
Member for Ottawa South.
Mr. Speaker, Treasury Board contracting rules are in place to prevent corruption and political favoritism. And yet documents show in March 2013, the office of the then Minister of Natural Resources, now the Finance Minister, ordered his department to approve a $9,200 payment that, according to his own department, quote, contravenes Treasury Board contracting policies. This was an after-the-fact speechwriting contract for the minister. And who was the money for? None other than Guy Journo, the Prime Minister's former Chief of Staff. Why were proper contracting rules violated?
The Honourable Parliament Secretary to the Prime Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as you know, of course, all
Treasury Board guidelines we expect all Treasury Board guidelines to be followed, Mr. Speaker. Having said that, Mr. Speaker, we know, of course, that the Liberal Party still has some $40 million of taxpayer funds outstanding, Mr. Speaker. Now that there is a new member over there, I wonder if she might help them search for that $40 million, Mr. Speaker. Maybe give them a bit of a leg up.
The honourable member for Ottawa South.
Mr. Speaker, government documents make it clear that this procurement was, quote, inappropriately actioned. The amount charged was conveniently just under the $10,000 public disclosure limit. But what's really distressing is that the department has no copy of the speech or any record of whether or where it was actually delivered. Can the minister immediately produce a copy of the speech, and can he advise why taxpayers paid for it if the department has no record of its very existence?
The Honourable Parliament Secretary.
Again, Mr. Speaker, of course we expect all Treasury Board guidelines to be followed, Mr. Speaker. But when it comes to giving speeches and being paid for those speeches, Mr. Speaker, I suggest that he actually ask the leader who sits in front of him, Mr. Speaker, who we know, of course, accepted huge contracts while being a member of Parliament to speak to places like, I don't know, school boards and unions and churches, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we're going to focus on what matters to Canadians, safety and security and the economy. And our plan, of course, has created over 1.2 million jobs. We're getting people back to work, Mr. Speaker. We're cutting taxes, Mr. Speaker. We're investing in infrastructure, and we're going to continue to do that for a very long time to come.
The honourable member for Ottawa South.
Mr. Speaker, Treasury Board rules were broken in order to offer a contract after the fact to a former Chief of Staff of the Prime Minister. The Minister of Natural Resources at the time's office even insisted that this payment be made in an end-of-fiscal-year panic. And even worse, the department cannot find any copy of this speech and does not even know what it was about. How can the minister find this acceptable?
The Secretary Parliamentaire.
The Parliamentary Secretary.
Great. It's 2:45. We're a number of months ahead of an election. And the best the Liberals have is they want to see a copy of the great speech, apparently, that the Minister of Natural Resources gave. They don't want to talk. They don't want to talk about cutting taxes, Mr. Speaker. They don't want to talk about the fact that we're giving parents, every single family in this country, more money in their pocket. They don't want to talk about the massive infrastructure program that the Minister of Infrastructure has brought forward, Mr. Speaker. They don't want to talk about the mission that we're taking right now in Iraq, Mr. Speaker. The best that they have is, can you please send us a copy of a speech that was given by the Minister of Natural Resources? I'll take a look and I'll see what other great speeches he's delivered and get.
Churchill.
Mr. Speaker, today we are mourning the loss of two...
Order. We moved on now. The honourable member for Churchill has the floor.
Mr. Speaker, today we are mourning the loss of two children from the Makwasagahigan First Nation in Saskatchewan who lost their lives in a devastating house fire. Their bodies were carried out of their burning home by their father when the RCMP finally arrived. There was no fire response. No one responded to the emergency call in a community with no fire services. My question to the minister is simple. How could this happen?
The Honourable Minister of Aboriginal Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, I know I have to be careful with the word I am going to be using, but, you know, for that member and that party to try score cheap political points over the death of children on a reserve is just unacceptable. Our thoughts and prayers are with that families who has been through this disaster, Mr. Speaker, and we will continue to work with these First Nations in order to prevent such in the future.
The honourable member for Churchill.
Mr. Speaker, the minister may already know that people living on a First Nation in Canada are 10 times more likely to die in a housing fire than in any other community in our country. And this has everything to do with the lack of federal funding to First Nations when it comes to emergency services. Mr. Speaker, the family deserves better. First Nations across the country deserve better. When will this federal government stand up and show some leadership so that tragedies like the one that happened in Makwasagahigan does not happen again?
Hear, hear.
Mr. Speaker, the member may yell if that makes her feel good, but it doesn't change the situation. I mean, the fact of the matter, Mr. Speaker, is that we provide funding to First Nations to support operation and maintenance, fire protection infrastructure, and fire protection training on reserve. First Nations manage the fire protection services on reserve to meet the need of their communities. And we also know, Mr. Speaker, that education and awareness play an integral role in fire safety, and that's what we are funding.
The honourable member for Quebec City. Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives' homelessness strategy is ill-suited to the needs of the community. By focusing on housing, the minister's taking a simplistic approach to a complex problem. Organizations all across Quebec feel that the best way to fight homelessness is to diversify intervention practices. Why doesn't the minister ever view prevention as a tool to fight homelessness? Doesn't she know that prevention is worth an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure? The Honourable Minister.
Based approach to fight homelessness. It's called Housing First. Mr. Speaker, we know that the NDP are opposed to evidence-based solutions. Instead, they are committed to their ideology. In fact, Mr. Speaker, in Quebec, decisions are made through a joint committee of federal and provincial officials who look at the local needs in that particular area. Mr. Speaker, we will continue with our homelessness partnering strategy, focusing on housing first across this country.
The honourable member. Mr. Speaker, because of the Conservatives' determination to stubbornly impose their homelessness strategy, 26 organizations in Quebec City are in trouble. L'Aubervière, la Maison Dauphine, the Salvation Army, the YWCA, Maison Revivre, and many others are all in limbo. According to one organization, this is one of the worst setbacks for homelessness in years. Why doesn't the Conservative government consider diversified intervention strategies? Why do they insist on a one-size-fits-all strategy? The Honourable Minister of State.
You know what's so good about our HPS strategy is that two things. First of all, it focuses on housing first, but it allows flexibility in each one of the regions and the major cities across Canada. Mr. Speaker, we are allowing each of the community entities to consult with their community advisory board and to be able to look at which projects should be funded. Yes, we are focusing on housing first, and yes, we are allowing flexibility. I'd be happy to brief that member on HPS.
The honourable member for Red Deer.
Mr. Speaker, according to the Liberal MP for Westmount Ville Marie, airstrikes against the ISIL death cult are, and I quote, overkill. For the benefit of the member of Westmount Ville Marie, can the Minister of National Defence update this House on the mission against ISIL and why it is so important?
The Honourable Minister of National Defence.
Well, sadly, Mr. Speaker, the comments of the Liberal critic echoed those of the so-called security expert of the Liberal leader, Mr. Leslie, who said that the biggest threat in the Middle East are those internally displaced persons, the refugees, the minorities who have fled the death cult of Daesh, Mr. Speaker. We could not agree more profoundly. We don't think that it's overkill for Canadian troops and airmen to be striking this genocidal death cult that is seeking to kill tens of thousands of innocent people that just decapitated 21 people because of their faith, Mr. Speaker. No, this is responsible. This is a responsible action by Canadians to defend international security and our own.
The honourable member for Vancouver-Kingsville.
Thanks to negotiations between the U.S. and Chinese governments, Americans are now able to get 10-year multiple entry visas to China. And even though Canada gives Chinese nationals 10-year visas, Canadians can only get a 1-year visa for travel to China. This is unfair to Canadians who want to visit China or conduct business there, harms businesses,
limits families, drives up costs, and makes our business sector less competitive. Will the government support my motion M558 and immediately work with the Chinese government to obtain 10-year multiple entry visas for Canadians?
The Honourable Minister of Citizenship.
Obviously thinks we've got our Canadian policies so right, they don't even deserve a motion from him. He needs a motion to go after Chinese policies for a visa for Canadians. Mr. Speaker, we have enhanced the business relationship with China in every way. There are more direct flights. There are more visas being issued. 1/4 of all the visas we issued ever in the world last year were issued to Chinese citizens, most of them 10-year multiple entry visas. And yes, Mr. Speaker, we will continue to work with the Chinese to ensure that more tourists come, that business expands, that business people have every opportunity to grow a vital trade and investment relationship.
The Honourable Member for Pierrefonds-Dollard. Mr. Speaker, the minister obviously doesn't intend to show any leadership on this file. We've been pushing him for months, and still nothing concrete has been done. The Americans have successfully negotiated multiple entry visas for business people traveling to China, but Canada is eating their dust. Will the government finally show some leadership by supporting our motion and work with the Chinese government to get 10-year multiple entry visas for Canadians? The Honourable Minister of Citizenship. Mr. Speaker, that's rich coming from the NDP, asking us to support a motion to change Chinese visa policies when they themselves voted against the Investment Protection Treaty. They voted against all our immigration programs that would promote the arrival of people from China, tourists, students, and so on. This is hypocrisy once again from the NDP, Mr. Speaker. On our side, we will continue fostering economic ties, dynamic ties with China. The Honourable Member for Hochelaga. You don't encourage a person when a dual citizen of Canada and the U.S. Is contributing to a registered disability savings plan, because that plan will be totally and unfairly overtaxed. The U.S. will collect tax when the money goes in, and surprise, surprise, Canada will collect tax on it when it comes out. Why is the minister refusing to protect thousands of Canadians living with a disability by amending this tax treaty?
Here we are.
The Honourable Minister of State.
Disability Savings Plan, Mr. Speaker, the only one of its kind in the world, created and really birthed by the late Jim Flaherty. Mr. Speaker, it is one that allows families to save for their children or their adults who have disabilities, because for most parents, it is a very deep concern of what's going to happen to their children when they're gone. So, Mr. Speaker, we absolutely are very proud of our Registered Disability Savings Plan. We're proud that there's been getting more and more uptake on it, and we encourage any family who has a child with a disability to invest, because we are providing a huge amount of grant money for that. Thank you.
Member for York South-Weston.
But, Mr. Speaker, the government is double taxing the disabled. That's a Conservative failure, Mr. Speaker. Canadian American citizens are being taxed twice, once by Canada and once by the U.S., when contributing to their child's disability savings plan. Money invested is meant to increase the financial security of children living with a disability throughout their lifetime. Why isn't the minister listening to families and amending our tax treaty? Why are Conservatives penalizing parents for saving to secure their children's future?
The Honourable Minister of State.
Well, Mr. Speaker, again, we're delivering historic tax relief, leaving money in Canadians' pockets, all Canadians' pockets, Mr. Speaker. We've increased the amount Canadians can earn tax-free. We've introduced the family tax cut. Mr. Speaker, we continue to bring forward measures to keep money in the pockets of Canadians.
The Honourable Member for Trinity Spadina.
Speaker, $9,000 didn't buy as much of a speech to our last question, but we'll try again. The finance minister and another minister showed up in Toronto last week to re-announce no new money for housing for Toronto. No doubt the government's response to this is going to be about a Tory praising a Tory, but let me tell you, it's faint praise in Toronto. Because just yesterday, Mayor Tory was in Ottawa talking to us all about what he needs for that city to go better. What they need is money for transit, money for infrastructure, and guess what? Money for housing. New money for housing. Celebrating the status quo means only 60 units of housing are going to be built in Toronto next year. The waiting list now is 1,500 years for someone on the wait list. When will this government commit new money for housing? When will they build new housing with new money?
The Honourable Minister of State for Social Development.
Mr. Speaker, we were very pleased to be in the City of Toronto with the Minister of Finance and the Mayor of Toronto to announce $86 million for our homelessness program. What did the Canadian Alliance to End Homelessness say? He said, the policy shift that this federal government announced in its budget this year is going to radically overhaul Canada's response to homelessness. So, Mr. Speaker, we will keep making these announcements, working together with our partners, working on evidence-based solutions to end homelessness.
The member for Toronto Centre.
Mr. Speaker, in an email to Conservatives about his plans to strip Muslim women of their right to wear the niqab at citizenship ceremonies, the Immigration Minister got the basic facts wrong. In a cynical political ploy, the government, he said, will appeal a court decision, quote, allowing people to wear the hijab while taking the oath. Surely this minister, of all people, ought to know the difference between a niqab and a hijab. As the Conservatives seek to restrict the rights of Muslim women, can't they at least pay them the courtesy of getting the facts right?
The Honourable Minister of Citizenship and Immigration.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the honourable member may not have had the honour of living in a majority Muslim country, where the hijab has been used to cover the face of women, just as the niqab has been used, just as the burqa has been used, under the terrible influence of the Taliban and other obscurantists in places like Afghanistan and Pakistan. And those practices, Mr. Speaker, have no place in our citizenship ceremonies, where we insist on confirming the identity and confirming the commitment of new citizens to our laws, to our sovereign, to our values, and to our traditions, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Laurier St. Marie. Mr. Speaker, order.
Order. The Honourable Deputy.
The Honourable Member for Laurier St. Marie. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The new round of sanctions against Russia once again misses the target.
Order. Order. If members wish to carry on the conversation about the last question, they can do so outside the chamber. Now we've moved on to the Honourable Member for Laurier St. Marie.
Yeah.
Mr. Speaker, the new round of sanctions against Russia has once again missed the target. Vladimir Yakunin, CEO of the Russian railway company, is still not on the list of individuals targeted. Yakunin is a longtime friend of Putin's. They even started up a co-op or a company together. Why are key individuals like Yakunin not on the most recent list? Why are the Conservatives soft on Putin's cronies?
The Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Member couldn't be more wrong. Nobody is tougher on Putin and those associated with him than this government and our support for Ukraine, Mr. Speaker. And this is why just yesterday we announced further sanctions. We have now placed sanctions against 270 individuals and entities. That's the toughest sanction record in the world, Mr. Speaker. She should be applauding that.
So the minister just told us Yakunin's not on the list, and it gets worse, Mr. Speaker. Including Yakunin, we have Putin's former deputy aide and former deputy prime minister, Igor Sechin, is not on the list. And you know what? He just had a meeting with Putin last week. This person is not on the list. Why are the Conservatives protecting Putin's friends? Very simple question. Why is Sechin and why is Yakunin not on the list?
Nobody has a better record of supporting Ukraine than this government. Why doesn't the NDP get behind that, Mr. Speaker, just for a change, just to mix it up, Mr. Speaker? We have been very clear. We have the toughest sanctions regime in the world, Mr. Speaker. We're very proud of that, and that should have the support of the NDP.
Order. The Honourable Member for Mississauga-Streetsville.
Mr. Speaker, I attend many citizenship ceremonies in Mississauga, and becoming a Canadian citizen is a proud time where newcomers commit themselves to Canada and embrace all the rights and privileges that come with being Canadian. A very important step to joining the Canadian family is reciting the oath of citizenship. Can the Minister of Citizenship and Immigration please explain to this House why the government intends to file a notice of appeal in this matter?
The Honourable Minister of Citizenship and Immigration.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank the member for Mississauga-Streetsville for his hard work for his constituents and for Canadian citizenship. Because Mississauga is one of the places in this country where we swore in a record number of citizens in 2014, Mr. Speaker, and we did it through a public declaration. The oath of citizenship is a statement that you are joining the Canadian family, that you're committed to Canadian values and traditions, and that's why most Canadians find it offensive that someone would conceal their identity at the very moment when they are joining and expressing their commitment to Canadian laws, values, and traditions. It's not a matter of practical policy, Mr. Speaker. This is a matter of principle. The oath of citizenship and is something we do publicly, keeping your face hidden from view at the moment you join our country.
The Honourable Member for Saint-Laurent-Cartierville. Mr. Speaker, on the subject of ministers who communicate online in only one language, the Heritage Minister replied that it was a matter of personal messages. Could she please explain why Francophones aren't entitled to the following personal messages from the Minister of Health? It is important to vaccinate your children. Download the free information here. Or, if you smoke, read more in my message here. Or from the Minister of Fisheries, important reminder, fishermen have until April 12th to comply. Why are Francophones not entitled to these public interest announcements? The Honourable Minister of Heritage.
I'd like to thank that member for actually repeating messages that are important to all Canadians. First and foremost, official communications of the government are always in French and English. The fact that our ministers take the time to also put out messages on personal accounts is exactly that. They can do it personally. We encourage them, of course, to send out messages always when they have to do with communications, official communications in French and English. But these are personal Twitter accounts that we're talking about, and we're not subject to the Official Language Act.
The Honourable Member for Rosemont-la-Petite-Patrie. Mr. Speaker, the installation of new mailboxes is turning into a real nightmare. Canada Post isn't keeping its promises. Mailboxes are surrounded by litter, graffiti, and snow. And that's not all. The mailboxes haven't even been installed yet in Griffintown and Mount Royal. We can picture the mess already. Unlike Canada Post, Montreal's Social Development Commission has held public consultations and recommends an immediate stop to the installation of these mailboxes. Mr. Speaker, when are the Conservatives going to start listening to the people of Montreal and all over Quebec? The Honourable Minister of Transport.
Mr. Speaker indeed is implementing a 5-point plan to ensure that they remain self-sustaining going into the future. One aspect is conversion of 1 million households to community mailboxes. But in doing so, Mr. Speaker, and I want to be very clear, Canada Post has the obligation to work with the municipalities to ensure that the siting is appropriate. I know that consultations are ongoing, and I encourage them to continue on that process.
Sounds great.
For Chatham, Kent, Essex.
Free and open trade generates jobs, growth, and long-term prosperity. Today, Canada, the U.S. federal government, and the state of Michigan have concluded and signed a plan of arrangement regarding the U.S. Customs Plaza for the new Detroit River International Plaza between Windsor and Detroit. Can the Minister of Transport please update this House on this important project?
Honourable Minister of Transport.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I would very much like to thank the member for Chatham-Kent Essex for that excellent question. And I'd like to commend the member for Essex, my parliamentary secretary, and all the great work that he's done on this project as well, too. Mr. Speaker, I can confirm for the House that an arrangement has been signed by all parties and all partners in the project to allow the U.S. Customs Plaza to be incorporated into the public-private partnership that will be building the other aspects of the bridge. We said very clearly that we were not going to allow financial considerations to get in the way of having progress on this bridge. And indeed, that is the case. Mr. Speaker, I think it's important to note as well, too, that the entire amount will be compensated.
The honourable member for Beauport-Limoilou. Last night, when nickel was being transshipped in the port of Quebec City, Limoilou's air quality got even worse. Quebec's Environment Minister sounded the alarm, warning that children and seniors could be affected. The problem has been around for 2 years now, and the government has refused to do anything about it. Once again, the Prime Minister recently made a whirlwind trip to Quebec City, but made no announcements to address this problem. When is this Conservative government going to get serious about people's health in Quebec City? The Honourable Minister of Transport.
Discuss this matter with the Port of Quebec, and this is what I am told they have undertaken: a full review of the company's operation, installation of sensors in sensitive areas to ensure monitoring of dust emissions, fully operational sprinkler systems and transmission, washing stations in order to ensure that vehicles returning are free of dust. Mr. Speaker, the Port of Quebec is working with their tenant to ensure that the citizens in Quebec are actually protected from this.
Member for Saanich, Gulf Island.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To the Prime Minister, in response to the very important decision today of the official opposition to oppose Bill C-51, I see that the Conservative talking points are to accuse those opponents of the bill of either not having read it or being forever ideologically opposed to anything the Conservative Party does. I wonder if the Prime Minister would square that point with the fact that the Globe and Mail editorial board, which has consistently supported the Conservative Party, has read the bill and condemns it as a secret police act.
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Well, Mr. Speaker, we reject the argument that every time we talk about security, that our freedoms are threatened. Canadians understand that their freedom and security go hand in hand. Canadians expect us to protect both, and there are protection in this legislation to do that. I invite the member to take part into the debate and eventually support that important bill for our country.
That concludes question period for today. Tabling of documents. Dépôt de documents. Dépôt de projet de loi émanant.
Introduction of government bills.
Ministers. Reports from interparliamentary delegations. Presenting reports from committees. Introduction of private members' bills. Mr. Scarpalasia, seconded by Mr. Lamoureux, moves for leave to introduce a bill entitled An Act to Amend the Canada Water Act, Recycling, Conservation, and Efficiency.
Mr. Moore, I should say.
Mr. Brown?
Mr. Brown.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see the Honourable Member for Leeds Grenville. He was getting up on which rubric? Okay, the Honourable Member for Leeds Grenville.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I have the honour to present in both official languages the 9th report of the Standing Committee on Canadian Heritage in relation to Bill S-218, an act respecting National Fiddling Day. The committee has studied the bill and has decided to report the bill back to the House without amendment.
Introduction of private members' bills. Mr. Scarpalasia, seconded by Mr. Lamoureux, moves for leave to introduce a bill entitled An Act to Amend the Canada Water Act, Recycling, Conservation, and Efficiency. This motion is deemed adopted.
Honourable Member for Lac Saint Louis.
It's a pleasure to introduce this bill, An Act to Amend the Canadian Water Act, what I call the Water Efficiency Bill. It would allow the federal government to create water efficiency standards for products and processes in Canada that are sold in Canada and that use water. It would also allow the government to recognize standards, water efficiency standards for devices and the like that were developed elsewhere, like in the United States or at the international level.